A couple of months in the last year, I did a small video on some sluice legs that I'd fabricated on the Angus MacKirk expedition sluice that I'd bought, and I'd got fed up with playing around with rocks and doing things at stream level. So I made a couple of brackets out of conduit hangers that I bought from Lowe's, and actually screwed those and epoxied those onto the side of the MacKirk sluice, and then used some tubing that I'd bought also from Lowe's and some star wheels for actually locking the tubes in place. And I thought I did a pretty decent job. It was above all very versatile, lightweight, and in these day and ages very cheap to build. I recently just got myself a Keene A52 from the American Prospectors, a good outfit, and researched a lot of the things and set the sluice up without any of the factory mats, but did some things myself. But again, I had the quandary on what I would do to get this thing, which is really a large sluice, set up at stream side. So I spent a couple of days and brainstormed, went back to the sluice stand that I used for my Angus MacKirk and thought, well, if I could use some of those components again and use the tubes again, I'd have a system that on all of my steel or aluminum sluices with straight walls, meaning these things here, I could use the same sluice stand system and obviously have one stand for everything. Obviously the Angus MacKirk was at a lip and was out of fiberglass and had a lip here, so that had to be a dedicated sluice stand. But I came up with the idea, and what I'll do is I'll just take one of these apart. That's obviously how that's how you undo the tubes. Move them up and down to remove them for disassembly. And then what I've done is I've made a couple of adjusting deals here. Whereas if you notice, I'm using a hanger from a conduit hanger. I've put on obviously a star wing nut to adjust it. I don't want to be using wrenches at stream side. And then I've used the same extruded lightweight metal hanger that you also use for actually hanging conduit tubing onto any kind of steel or girders. And once again, instead of using the straight hexagonal nut, I put in a star wheel. So essentially you can take these things on and off the sluice itself, fix them up stream side, then just put the actual tubes in, get the right height, front, rear, cinch everything down, and basically have a sluice stand that is removable, lightweight, doesn't mean drilling holes into the sluice itself. For aftermarket purposes, obviously you'd like to try and sell that thing as intact as possible, and above all, very inexpensive. The biggest expenditure are these star wheels here, which are about $3 a piece. Then the hangers are about $1.20 and $1.80 for these. So all in all, with the tube itself, an 8-foot piece of tubing, which costs about $3 or $4 or $5, you've got just under $25 for this whole assembly, which you'll also use on other sluices. I've got a small Prospector's Choice sluice which I can use this on, which will be perfect. So for what I'm saying, guys, is for $25 I've made a sluice stand that basically is pretty universal and saves me a lot of money. If you've got any recommendations or you see anything here that could be improved upon, this was only just made about 20 minutes ago, so what I'm going to do is actually epoxy the screws that hold these two hangers together, epoxy them in so that there's no side, or maybe even put a nut inside this washer, inside this hanger here, cinch the nut so that these two components are basically joined permanently. So anyway guys, as always, it's a pleasure to talk to you people, and if you again have any recommendations, or you can give me some pointers that, you know, you as engineers or maybe mechanical engineers can help me with this project on, let me know. And as I always say, and I'm sorry to keep on saying it, but the best day of work compares most probably to the worst day ever you've had sluicing. So what I'm trying to say is, guys, go out, buy some equipment, get out into the fresh air, get your feet wet, most probably everything else on your body wet, and prospect for gold. It's a great occupation. See you later, guys.